Hello and welcome to our weekly Shir on the Parsha with the commentary normally of the Alshach. Although you will know, if you've been following me for the last few weeks, that we're going on the journey from Pesach to Shavuos, a reenactment, a rediscovery of exactly what that was, what that meant. But before I start, I just want to please bring to your attention, as I'm sure I have already, but it is this coming Sunday and Monday, it is the annual fundraiser for TorahAnytime.com. TorahAnytime.com, in case you don't know, hosts my shirim, so you might be seeing it there. You can find it, of course, in other outlets as well. But TorahAnytime.com is the only one with 1 million listeners. No, not me personally. 1 million hours of listening time to Torah Shiurim every month. 12 million hours listened every year. That is a scope and a reach which is beyond anything else that I can possibly imagine that Torah Shirim have the ability to get to. So please, it's there will be a link at the bottom if you're not watching this in Torah Anytime. If you're watching this in Torah Anytime, the link's right there. I've undertaken to try and raise $10,000 towards their growing budget because their growing demand, and of course, to meet that growing demand, they need growing staff and growing resources. So please, if you enjoy the sharing every week that you hear from others, but certainly I hope if you enjoy the sharing that you hear from me, then please help me reach my target of $10,000 on behalf of Torah Anytime as my thank you to them for the incredible work they do. So if you're seeing this in Torah Anytime, the link's at the top. If you're seeing this elsewhere, I will put it at the bottom, and then my Facebook page or whatever. And so please join those who are making Torah Anytime happen, and people out there know what Yiddishkeit and Torah is all about, and grow. Thank you very much. I think we'll just go straight into the share. Because we're starting, the theme is called like the Shavuos Journey, from Mount Sinai to Shavuos. Last week we were discussing, and we said rather obviously, that any successful journey needs a successful guide. And the guide that we have, or the first guide that we have for our reenactment is, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's what we're doing now. We're investigating Moshe Rabbeinu. We looked at the spiritual level that he was on last week, which was quite remarkable. This week, we're trying to find out how he got there. And next week, we'll be talking about, very importantly, that even though Moshe Rabbeinu was on a level which is beyond our comprehension, more of that in a second, still that didn't stop him knowing the basic concerns, the basic worries of very ordinary people like Y.Y. Rubenstein, and be able to intervene sometimes very forcefully in heaven or here on earth to make sure that our problems are solved. And that's maybe a good place to start. To get the context, to put Moshe Rabbeinu into context, we have to, I think, point to a Ramban who points to a puzzling Rashi. It's the first Rashi in the Chumash. So what does Rashi say in the Chumash? His first commentary is, when it says, Bereshis, Hashem created the world, then Rashi says, we don't need to start or to have this in the Torah at all. Why is the story of the creation in the Torah? The only reason Rashi seems to be able to offer is that if the non-Jewish world says that the Jews stole the land of Israel from its original inhabitants, that's somewhat reminiscent of something else. Back in the day, then we were supposed to say, look, here's the Chumash. Hashem created it. It's his. He gave it to those he thought were worthy, or he wanted to give it to them. When he saw they were very unworthy, he took it away and gave it to us. QED. End of argument. Now, of course, this is Rashi. So what seems to be like almost a flippant comment is not a flippant comment at all. So says the Ramban. But the Ramban, before he explains what Rashi is saying, starts with a question. The question is a simple one, which is, what does Rashi mean that we could dispense with Bereshis? If you don't have Bereshis, if you don't know about Bereshis and you don't believe in Bereshis, that in the beginning Hashem created all of the universe and us. If you don't know that, then, or you don't believe that, you fundamentally fail as a Jew. It's the absolute fundamental of Jewish belief. So what does Rashi mean when he says we can dispense of with Bereshit? And the Ramban says that if you think you're going to be able to understand and comprehend with your finite mind an infinite universe with infinite and maybe even multiverses, with infinite events, people, etc., at the molecular level, at the macro and micro level, obviously you won't be able to do it. It's all beyond this. And then he starts to give examples. If you think you're going to understand what Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve were like, no, you won't. If you're going to understand what the Garden of Eden was like, it wasn't a garden. Hint. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a garden, at least as you picture a garden in your mind, or I picture it in my mind. No, it wasn't that. I think we could fairly call that a different dimension. If you're going to understand, if you want to understand the story of Cain and Abel, you're going to understand the story of the flood and Noah and the ark, or the Dor HaFloga, the Tower of Babel, and the dispersal of humanity and split into various tribes or linguistic groups. All beyond this. The world was a radically different place at that time. Egypt, it was a radically different place at that time as well. Even today, there is no answer to so many riddles and so many mysteries, how the Egyptians were able to do what the Egyptians apparently were able to do in building pyramids and other quite remarkable structures which have aspects to them which are just unexplainable. Egyptian society and Moshe Rabbeinu himself. When we're talking about Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Torah gives us an exercise, an essay in what they were like, but the whole story, the complexity, the enormity of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, sorry, Rachel and Leah, Moshe, Aaron, and all the rest are truly a little bit beyond us, to put it mildly. Still, it can't be too beyond us, or they wouldn't be in the Torah. They couldn't have got us the Torah. There has to be some sort of connection. So basically, let's see if we can answer the question, how did Moshe Rabbeinu get to be Moshe Rabbeinu? Well, maybe we can start at the beginning, born to Amram and to Cheved, mom and father, the greatest rabbi of the generation, perhaps the greatest tzedekah of the generation. And so he comes from that sort of background, but then they hide him in a reed basket on the Nile, which is a very strange place to hide anybody in plain sight. Crying baby in a basket. That's not very well hidden. Anyway, so then Miriam stands by the bank, etc. And then, of course, it was a decree to kill all the Jewish boys. He's taken and discovered by somebody called Basia. Basia is a daughter of Pharaoh. The Medrash, as I'm sure you're all aware, says that she was there at the Nile in order to use it as a mikveh. Every river is automatically a mikveh because she was there in order to complete her conversion to Judaism. She, famous story, famously goes to her father with this foundling. There's a ton to say there, why he didn't suspect that this was the child who his prophets had warned him was going to be born and would save the Jewish people, hence the massacre of all the babies. Why didn't he believe in this? Because Moshe was born a tiny baby. And he didn't look his age. In other words, he didn't come in within the birth group where the threat was coming from. So that's how he was able to save. There's a lot more to say, and I'm not going to go into that. That would take me in a totally different direction. But Basia then says to the little girl, Miriam, go and find me a nurse, somebody to nurse, a wet nurse, to be able to look after this baby, and hands him straight back to the mother. And then Basia brings Moshe Rabbeinu up in Pharaoh's palace. When he goes out, which we talked about last week, to see the suffering of the Jewish people, we were emphasizing that the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu was born perfect and didn't have to work to become Moshe Rabbeinu was a nonsense. As Reb Simcha Zissel said, he goes out to see his brothers suffering. Because only if you picture it in your mind, and in fact he actually did what they were doing, he was schlepping stuff and pulling big rocks and big slabs of stone to share in their burden, because only if you feel somebody else's pain can you actually see yourself, do the mitzvah of seeing yourself as though you were there. So we said that he's actually going out in order to do this. But it's obvious from the fact he's going out to do this mitzvah, he's familiar with that mitzvah. So therefore, in his background, at least to some degree, in fact, quite a lot, a great degree, as you'll see in a second, he was well exposed to Jewish concepts, to the depth of Judaism as it exists in that pre-Torah age and stage. And there's something more there. So if we look at the Rashi, so this whole incident of Moshe going out to see the suffering of his brothers, then the Pasuk says, and this is the famous bit when he sees an Egyptian who is hitting a Jewish slave. So what happens? Find the place here. Good. And it says, so, in those days, the Gadol Moshe, and Moshe became great. I remember I said last week, the Gadol Moshe, he became great. He made himself great. The Yigadel, he made himself great. He grew. He chose to grow. So he goes out to see his brothers, and see their suffering. He sees an Egyptian man, hitting one of his brothers, one of the Jews. In fact, the man had raped this Jew's wife. And then famously, Moshe looks here and there, and he sees there is no man. No man? No one, no men. What's this no man? Vayach is a Mitzri, and he kills the Mitzri, and he buries him in the sand. So go back to that again. The previous passage. What did he see? So Moshe saw a Vayar Ish Mitzri. He sees an Egyptian man, a Make Ish Ivri. The Alshach says there's something very interesting. The word Ish is interesting. It means it's the highest level of human being, of man, is an Ish, referred to as an Ish. Odom, Enash, Gibor, different words in Hebrew for Ish. But of course, there are no synonyms in Hebrew for other words. They're all unique. An Ish defines a man on the highest level. So why do they call this Mitzri an Ish? In fact, he was a bit of a brute. He just raped the man's wife, and he's beating him because he's discovered. And of course, it was strictly against Egyptian law to cohabit with Jewish women. Maki ish ivri me'echov. So he looks koi b'koi v'yarki ein ish. Now the word ish, Rashi says here, famously Rashi, what does it mean? He looked here and there. He looked to see whether there was going to be in the future anybody who would descend, who would come from this Egyptian and person would become a ger, would convert and become a Jew, so that in killing him, you would be stopping that journey of that soul, and that would be, Moshe would have to find an alternative route. That's what he's looking for. But he's looking into the future. People who look into the future of Ruach HaKodesh. So Moshe had Ruach HaKodesh at that stage. I always understood, although there's different opinions, that Moshe Rabbeinu at the age of 40, up to the age of 40, is an Egyptian prince. Then there's this incident here. I saw in the Alshach just the other week. No, it's just when he was an Ish, when he was a bar mitzvah. So that's when he was 12. In other words, when he's got responsibilities as a Jew, he shoulders those responsibilities as a Jew and goes to bear the burdens of the Jewish people as they are doing, to see and feel their suffering. So here's Moshe Rabbeinu as a young man, however you want to. I understood 40 Egyptian prince, 40 years in the desert, working on himself as a shepherd. Remember, all the greats of the Jewish people, David HaMelech, Moshe Rabbeinu, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were all shepherds, and all the brothers, Yaakov's sons, are all shepherds. It's a very great way to be in touch with the spiritual, is when you're on your own, doing the midst of chesed towards the animals. It all helps towards you growing on the spiritual journey. Age of 80, then Moshe Rabbeinu has his first prophetic episode at the burning bush. But it would seem to be that Moshe Rabbeinu, even though God speaks to him directly at the burning bush, be it Ruach HaKodesh, before God ever speaks to him, he goes out, according to Rashi, and he sees. So he seems to know about the idea of the mitzvah of sharing somebody's suffering. He actively, says Rashi, goes out to share in their pain. And not only that, he has got the ability to look into the future. Oh, not only that, Rashi says that, I'll read this a little bit here. And how did Moshe kill this man? By saying the hidden name of God, just said it when he died. How did he know that? So here is a 12-year-old boy, if we'll go with the Alshach's shot, who seems to be on a level which we can't understand. But again, as I said at the beginning of the share, we can't understand the story of Bereshis, and we can't understand Adam and Chava, certainly not. And we certainly can't understand the story of Noah. And truly to understand Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu, we can't really understand it. But as I said, if they're in the Torah, it's there for a lesson for us to learn from. So let's pursue. Let's stay with that outline. Let's keep him as a 12-year-old, just about to become Bar Mitzvah, or just become Bar Mitzvah. And at that stage, he seems to already have had insights, knowledge, Jewish knowledge, Kabbalistic knowledge, mystical knowledge. In fact, the Alshich says, when the Pasuk says that Paroi sought his death, then what does it mean, sought his death? He was looking, the year Moshe, V'yama Akinoda Dover, V'yishma Paro es Dover, as V'yivakish Lahargoi, and he tried to kill him. There's also some midrashim in that as well. But what the Alshich says is that somebody who had the ability to just open his mouth and kill people with words, was somebody who has to work out exactly how to get him so that he is not got by him like the others. So Moshe Rabbeinu at such a tender age is in the level of a giant. Who's got Ruach HaKodesh today? At that level anyway. So that's our question. So we saw the Moshe's level last week, that his neshama wanted or tried to argue with Hashem. Did argue with Hashem. Didn't want to leave Moshe. Didn't want to leave Moshe's body. Sorry. So how did such a thing happen? How did he get to that level? And there's a Rabbi Dessler from Mikta Miliyahu, and here in page 51 of Chelik Gimel of Mikta Miliyahu, Rabbi Dessler says the following thing. Kodem Matan Torah, before the Torah was given, which is our period, is exactly what we're investigating. Before the Torah was given, how is that Torah Lamala? The Torah existed because, remember, the first thing Hashem created and the whole of the universe was the Torah. And then the universe was created from the blueprint, which was the Torah. So the format in Torah, how is that Torah Lamala, B'Shamayim, therefore, you had to get up to it to achieve it, stage after stage, as it were, going up rungs in the ladder, steps in the ladder to get to heaven, to get the Torah, metaphorically speaking. Not that the Torah is down here on earth, as you can see in the books behind me, which is, of course, what happened after Matan Torah. Anybody who manages to climb that ladder, that spiritual ladder, would be able, listen to these words here, it's critical, would be able to find the Torah besoich, within nishmosai, her own soul, which is pure, in their own pure soul. Dargas within his very being, which is what he is. That the Medrash says, where did Avram learn the Torah? From within himself. From within himself? What on earth does that mean? Okay. So, and not only that, he says, very interesting, the Medrash says, where did he learn Torah? Hashem appointed for him 2 kidneys, as though there were 2 teachers. 2 kidneys? Like 2 teachers? You'll find the idea of the kidneys, of course, each part of the body is as a deep, and the dimensions of a body, of a human body, is not accidental. And it, as it were, created from the blueprint of the Torah, interfaces with the Torah. And so particularly that happens, you can see that many, many metaphors to the Torah and Torah ideas in the heart, in the mind, in the eyes, hand. But what about the kloyos? So we say on our davening in Yom Kippur that Hashem is boich the kloyos, he examines the kloyos. The metaphor or the analogy is that the lungs make a noise, breathe in, breathe out, cough. Heart makes a noise, etc. But the kidneys are very silent. And what's the symbolism of the silence? Hashem is looking at when we kid ourselves on, when we lie to ourselves, when we, as it were, silence ourselves to the truth and manufacture your own truth. The 2 teachers were the kloyos that Moshe Rabbeinu examined within himself when he would be kidding himself on, sorry, Avram Avinu rather, kidding himself on, deceiving himself, not being honest and very, very strict with himself in order to overcome aspects of his personality that need to be overcome. Rabbi Dessler talks about this a lot. You'll find this in Kili Daladin, mainly on page 162. And he taught it's a theme you shall also find in Kili Aleph. Nobody ever escapes truly from being a physical person, even Moshe Rabbeinu. But of all the people who did, Moshe Rabbeinu reached the highest level. But that's the idea. There is, therefore, within ourselves, of course, in the neshama. When we were in our mother's womb, that neshama was taught the whole of the Torah and shown the whole of knowledge and the whole of human history, or the universe's history, because them are not finite. The neshama is, after all, a bit of Hashem, comes from Hashem, as it were, and any fraction of an infinity is an infinity. So an infinite creature could understand infinite knowledge and infinite history, etc. So Moshe Avram Avinu, and all of us within our mother's womb, we are able to understand and have that imprinted within us the whole of the Torah. When we come to this world, that's different. Now there is a marriage of the physical and the spiritual, or I should say the spiritual and the physical. And as soon as the spiritual and the physical takes over, then that door, that knowledge is now closed behind that door, the door of the physical, the door of a physical world, which seems to offer a different reality, a more convincing reality. You can touch physical things after all. How can you believe in a God you can't see? How can you believe in the idea of souls you can't see? Bring me empirical evidence. But that's a circular argument. Empirical is simply the term for something you prove in the physical world using physical criteria. But the metaphysical world, something beyond that, of course you can't prove it. You're using the wrong tool for the job. Right. So therefore, as a consequence of that, inside each and every one of us, we were once truly holy, truly pure, neshama. When, however, we come to this world, we become compromised. The physicality of this world, the desires of this world, sexual desires, egotistical desires, etc., 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 all pile on top of it and smother, as it were, encase the soul in all sorts of distractions. Let's use that word. That'll be a good example. Fine. The Vilna Gaon, in his commentary in Mishli, says exactly that. Let me read just a little bit of the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon, you'll find this in Mishli, it's in Tes Zayin, and possibly Dalad. Not really all of them there is going to be talking about the nature of a human being. But here he says the following thing. Divine inspiration, the ability to see beyond the physical constraints of this world, that's the purview of every single human being. As long, quoting a verse in Tehillim, as long as the piling on of all that physicality has not smothered or completely encased and imprisoned the soul so it can't get out. So again, the physical world, our engagement with the physical world, is that which stops us piercing through to our basic nature, in which the Torah is already imprinted. Where did Avram learn the Torah? From within himself. It's already there. Ruach HaKodesh, from within ourselves. There was a whole lot to say there, but really it will take me in too many different directions. When Ramat Solomon, my great teacher, passed away not too long ago, if I just take my camera and do that, there you go. Can you see up there? Just above my head to the I'm going to try and put, as it goes in the wrong way, there. There. But the camera won't show. That's me and Ramat Solomon. About a year before he passed away. Fix our camera back down a bit. Okay. So Ramat Solomon was one of my great teachers, and I knew him from when I was a teenager, I think. And certainly in my 7 years in Gate City Shiva, and really for the whole of my life. And as I said, it was just, I think, the year before he passed away, I went to see him. And Ramat Solomon, when he passed away, Reb Shraga Feivel Zimmerman, who was the Gate Said Rov, now is the head of the base team of the Federation of Synagogues in London. Remarkable man. I'm very, very privileged to be able to say I know him. I would hardly call him. I'm not on the level, I think, to call him a friend, but an admirer. He'd probably call me a friend. He's also a very, very kind person. Anyway, he'd be being kind to me. Anyway, back to this. When he was talking, giving the eulogy, it wasn't, most people at the time were giving eulogies to Ramatziel, including myself. But he said, he gave what he called Divri Zichronos, words of memories of Ramatziel. I have to tell you that I think it was so brilliant, and I actually wrote to him and said that this is so inspiring. It should really be published, I think, because you really want to get a taste of Ramatziel and what he's like. Then you try and listen to that share. I'm telling you, it's absolutely fabulous. The insights to a true Godel. And then, of course, you will find it in Torah anytime, where you'll find so much good things, as I mentioned at the beginning. He told a story. One of the stories he told there was once he was talking about Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was once asked a question about the Chazon Ish. So the Chazon Ish, of course, lived in Bnei Brak, was renowned for the fact that even though he had no formal medical training, doctors performing perhaps pioneering surgery or pioneering techniques would often come and discuss what they wanted to do with the Chazon Ish to ask for his input and advice. But to ask for the input and advice of somebody, on, I don't know, mending a quantum computer. Ask a Rubinstein, I could mend any computer, but a quantum computer, I haven't a clue. I know nothing about quantum computers, except they're scary. But basically, why are they asking the Chazon Ish? So this was always seen as being a proof that he had Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh, of course, gives you the insights, or gives you insights way beyond the parameters of your own intellectual achievements or abilities. You're becoming a conduit through which knowledge, the knowledge of everything, i.e. the Torah, flows. So therefore, that's what they say. The reason that doctors used to come to see the Chazon Ish because they had Ruach HaKodesh. So Yaakov Kamenetsky, the great giant of American Jewry, contemporary, of course, of Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Yaakov, he was once commented on this, so somebody asked him about this, and he said, I'm not convinced that that shows the Ruach HaKodesh. Anybody, he said, who's been able to, I'm trying to remember exactly the language that Rabbi Zimmerman used, but worked on himself to purify his thoughts. So there's no personal biases, prejudice, desire for an outcome to be achieved. Again, a wonderful essay by Rabbi Dessler called Shorish from Musa and Kelly Aleph. Somebody who's worked on themselves, so they're only interested in the truth, can do the same thing, he said. Can do the same thing. Rabbi Zimmerman said that he discussed this with the Rosh of Gesed, Ravon Gurevitz, Shlita, in whose share I had the privilege of sitting for 2 years. And he said that his father, who was my Rosh before, Reb Leib Gurevitz, said the exact same thing, that basically that somebody who is an Ish Yosher, straight, and has worked on themselves, would be able to see the truth and understand things. When he was discussing this with Ramatziel, he said, that's the definition of B'Av Ruach HaKodesh. Somebody has taken the I out of the equation, taken away all the desires for this world out of the equation, leaves the true self inside, which is pure, which of course sees the truth. That's exactly, he said, what Ruach HaKodesh is. Fantastic stuff. Let's finish with some insight from Shlomo Volbel we looked at last week, and this is fabulous. It's the same essay, but at the end of the essay, there's a little note at the bottom. So it's in page Ein Dalet, page Ein Vov. For those of you watching this on the computer screen, you can see, there's it comes into focus. You can see there's a note there at the bottom. Moshe Rabbeinu, we are told, the distinction between Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevi'us, prophecy, level of prophecy, and that of all other prophecies is that all other prophets look with through a glass. They see through a glass. I'm not going to translate glass any differently as the term glass at the moment. I will qualify it in a second. A glass, which is not clear. But Moshe Rabbeinu's glass that he looked through was clear. Okay, so that certainly gives you a metaphor, right? You look through a window, you can't see quite what's going outside, on outside. If you've got a clear window, you can see clearly. Moshe Rabbeinu could see clearly. His glass was clear. All other prophets had a window, whereas a window that sometimes was obscure, wasn't so clear cut what they were seeing outside. That's the famous understanding. That's ispaklaria. Oh, the word for that is ispaklaria. Um, uh, and you know what? Oh yeah, ispaklaria. Ispaklaria I saw recently is a construct word. And it comes from Sophic Re'ia. Ispak Sophic L'Re'ia. There's a suffix to be able to see. You're not sure. A glass allows you to either resolve the suffix, the question, or to be able to see better. So that's the question. What exactly was this glass? Right? What does it mean? So Reb Shlomo Volba, in his note here in Ali Shore, says an incredibly interesting thing to my mind. I found this very enjoyable, and I thought I must share this. If you look right at the end of the Mishnayos on Kelim, then you've got the Rav, the Bartanura, and you've got the Parish of the Rambam. And there the Mishnah is discussing whether or not a glass, which is concave, in other words, a bit like a bowl, so it's shallow, therefore could be a container, and the container is makabel tuma, can become impure through contact with the various agents, dead bodies, etc., which convey tuma. If it is a keli, it can become tommy, but if it's not a keli, if it's not a vessel, a container, then it doesn't. So it's discussing there, what if it's convex, what if the glass is convex or concave. Okay. So therefore, what sort of glass are we talking about? So listen to this. So you find this interesting. That's interesting. Also interesting because a perspective on our very deep, I suppose, philosophical, mystical even discussion about Moshe Rabbeinu and how Ruach HaKodesh works is now going to be given an insight from what seems to be a very dry halachic discussion on the nature of vehicles for conveying impurity. Okay, let's see. The Rav says, what is ispaklaria? This glass. Remember, Moshe sees through a glass clearly. What's our glass? So it says, the Rav says, it's a glass. That's why I don't translate it glass, like a looking glass, as they used to say in the fairy tales in medieval times. Or a glass classically was, indeed, like a mirror. Whether it had the reflective shiny bit at the back, mercury, I think it is, then, or it was just reflection we can often see in the glass, I'm not sure. But we're talking about a glass that you see your face in. That, says the Rav, is what we're talking. That's what ispaklaria means, right? So that's one. The Rambam says no. Ispaklaria hi machitza asher yasal lirois me'uchrov hatzoris. What it is one of these. It's machitza is almost like a barrier. I'm not sure exactly what to find the English word that would explain that, but it's a glass which allows me, it magnifies and lets me see that way. A mirror shows me in towards me. Glasses or binoculars or a telescope allows me to see forward and out. So ispaklaria, the Rambam says, he machitza asher yasal l'rois me'achrav hatzoros. It's a glass that allows you to see something far off that you would not normally be able to see the detail of. Kalema meshkafayim, in other words, glasses like I wear. Okay, fine. Jump a little bit here. So he says, where are we up to? Good. Is that where I want to go to? No, there. Good. Shteha adea. So these two opinions, Shel Harambam and the Rav and the Bartanura, Yesh Lahem Makar Vika Rabba. Their source is, you can find it in the Medrash. And the Medrash says, Ma bein Moshe l'kol hanabim. What's the distinction between Moshe and all the other Nevi'im? I already hinted at this a few minutes ago. So Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Eloi, says, Amar, mitoch tes as baklarias hoya hanabim roim u'Moshe ro mitoch as baklaria achas. They saw through 9 glasses. 9 window panes, so it's very obscure. Whereas Moshe saw through only one. right? So the barrier of the glass, any distortion would be almost irrelevant or infinitesimal when it's just one glass window. But if you're looking through 9, then it's going to be very, very thick indeed and quite distorting or not clear. Zuhi das Rambam, which of course that's what the Rambam said, right? The Rambam said it's like glasses looking out, okay? Something you look out the way to. So here, if you get very, very thick lenses, then there's something wrong with your eyes. If you only needed a very short prescription, your eyes are basically very healthy. So Moshe just needed a very thin lens. Everybody else big thick lenses. That's the Rambam. The Rabbanan Omrim al Neviim ro misaych es baklaria b'cholekas, but the other ones say no. That's not the analogy. A glass, we're talking about a glass which is dirty. Moshe saw through a glass which was clear. That's and bezehu das harav. In other words, the other opinion is it's the mirror, says the Medrash Rabbah, and the mirror, as far as the other Nevi'im prophets are concerned, was very dirty. They couldn't see clearly. But Moshe's mirror was not dirty, not covered in dirt or soil or anything, and therefore he could see in clearly. It's exactly what we say. Moshe had got himself to a level, as we saw last week, that beautiful Medrash, other Medrash Rabbah, that his soul didn't want to leave his body because his body would become so pure. It was no longer a barrier to the soul. Moshe was on such a level. How? By working on himself, by self-examination, by decades of introversion, investigation of the world, the spirituality of the world, Hashem is Baruch, the creator of the world, etc., to such a degree where his sense of I, the barrier was diminished and went away. It's only a headline I'm giving you, only a sketch of a life, and a life really beyond us. But a person can transform themselves. The Alshach says that very clearly. After all, every time we do a mitzvah, we make a brocha, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvah. This thing I'm doing, this mitzvah I'm doing, is making me just a little bit more focused, be able to see inside myself through the barriers are blocking my access to the spiritual. That's showing us Moshe Rabbeinu at an incredibly, incredibly high level, spiritual level. But as I said to you last week, I don't want you to imagine that Moshe Rabbeinu was therefore, as they say in Yiddish, a Luftmensch, somebody up there with his head in the clouds, with no ability to deal with reality and human beings and human psychology. In fact, somebody who became quite infamous, as once accused Moshe Rabbeinu of making every possible basic mistake in man management. This did not make him very popular in certain quarters. But I will show examples next week so that we know that our guide, even though he's way up there with angels, still has feet firmly planted on earth. And once again, as we're ending, please, it's this Sunday and this Monday. Help me support TorahAnytime.com. If you're watching this on Torah Anytime, please click on the link below, above, and please give as much as you comfortably can. And if you're watching this elsewhere, I will post links too, so that you can please enable me to make a meaningful contribution through your help and in partnership with you for Torah Anytime to carry on reaching millions and millions of Jews. I wish you all a very, very good Shabbos.